that a coach can do for you, that as a coach, you can do it for your players, because you've got to structure that challenge that people lose their mind. Or we have the saying, they get out of their head. And it is the pinnacle, it is the ultimate in human experience. You know, I want to live that way, I want to die that way. You know, I love when that clattering, whining, sniveling ego, and I love it like my own child, and it is my own inner child. But I love it when it just takes a back seat, when it watches the game with fascination, when I hit that strike point, I reach that high performance zone, something is flowing, I'm flowing, it's flowing, I'm part of it, I belong to the team, I'm part of the spirit of the thing. And then once in a while that ego comes up and it just peeks around. I can feel it inside of my head when it does it. I can feel it. What's that? You know, I could do that. And then it realizes it can't. You know, it can't. In high performance, the ego has no chance. In writing a great novel, the editor has no chance. In writing a great piece of music, the critic has no chance. And that little ego comes up and it looks around like a child. Wow. And then it just fades away again. I'm back into the flow. If I can get a moment of that every day, if I can get an hour of that 2 or 3 times a week, I'll tell you, I live for that, and I know every great performer does. And of course, the gold medals follow, and the money follows, and the applause follows. But that's not the reward, is it? You know, the reward is you get to be yourself. And yourself just means you're above the line. You're in the world of action. You're in the flow. You're in the state of being who you really are. Ego, below the line, it's very simple. It just means you're not yourself. You know, you're not looking like yourself today. You hear it all the time. You don't seem like yourself. That doesn't sound like you. We hear those sayings, don't we? You know, after filming so many thousands of people and filming their faces and watching how people decline, how they go into pain, how they get swayed by other people, and then watching people make that climb back. Well, we framed it up. We made facial references, bone structure references, muscle tension pattern references, emotional states, psychological states, and we built the charts very carefully based on what we were seeing and what people were telling us. So behind this little experiment, this poetry, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of observation, there's a lot of exploration. See, that coaching is an art. It's not science. And you're working with people, you're working with human nature, you're working with the human spirit. And what you're working with is art. Now, the art is based on science. It's based on years and years and years of observation. It's based on also the observations of thousands of other people and psychological studies from Spielberger at South Florida, from McClelland at Harvard. You know, we brought in the best of the research, of the information, and then we've done our own research. But finally, when you get down to moving that team, it comes down to the art of being yourself. So it's an art based on science, but the art is being who you really are. Not who you're afraid you are, not who you're afraid you're not. That's the ego. Not on your paranoia, not on your delusions of grandeur, not on wanting the applause, not on greediness or neediness, really on who you are. The full confidence you had as a child when you were just yourself, your beautiful, lovable, perfect self. You didn't even imagine, you couldn't even think what it would be like to manipulate anybody or to be manipulated by anybody. You were just who you were. Well, that's the self. And that's why we perform. It is, as far as I know, the most reliable way back to yourself. See, when we're young, if you have a look at the scale for a minute, when we're very young, we're pretty much transcendent. Little babies, transcendent. They're in a bigger world than you and me. You know, they are 100% themselves, and barring pain or disturbance or hunger, they're in bliss, they're in rapture, they're in a state of joy. They are the actual self. And they're in ecstasy. And that's why we love to crowd up to them and look at them. You know, if you're pushing a baby through a supermarket and you just watch the people coming and poking their face in there to look, oh, hi, hello there. And they want to just enjoy, they want to bask in that joyous ecstasy that children have. And we all were like that. We started like that. We started at the beginning. We started at the top of the scale. Each month, each year that went by, we began to decline. You know, after some years, we began to lose our tranquility. After some months, I should say. After some months, we lose our inspiration. So the light goes out here, it goes dim. The light here goes dim. And you can see it in the body. At a certain age, our voice becomes very loud. We scream for what we want. We're enthusiastic about and everybody says, and we learn to hold that throat tight and clamp that jaw and shut our mouth. And children should be, you know, seen and not heard. And we clamp that level off. We lose our enthusiasm. Some time later in our life, usually around age 4 or 5, the happiness, the self-esteem, the compassion begins to fade because we get the idea that love is based on something we deserve or don't deserve or something we did or didn't do. And so it becomes very conditional, and the heart takes on a great soreness, a great sadness. A cloud comes over it that dims the lights. And sometime later, around maybe 8 or 9, we begin to lose our excitement and our straightforwardness. I have a friend, she was telling me about her son was in an airport, and she saw a guy, big guy, and she said, "Mommy, look at that fat man." And she went, "Shh, shh, shh." And the guy said, "That's all right, it's all right, you know." But we're conditioned, you know, don't be truthful, don't be honest, don't be just who we are. Don't be excited about everything. This kid was excited, look at that fat man. What's wrong with that? You know, but of course, as adults, you know, we can't. We've got to shut this down, we've got to close this down. We've got to close down the sexuality. That starts around age, 11, 12, 13. So the hormones are coming in and saying, yes, yes, yes. The ideas from outside, the behavioral norms are coming in and saying, no, no, no. And we start to tighten up our belly. And we start to shut off that sexuality because we're not supposed to feel that aliveness, you know. So the pleasure gets closed off. And by now, we're literally a shadow of ourselves. Literally a shadow of ourselves. We're not free to enjoy. And then we reach the bottom level before age 20 because we get this message now. You can't trust anything. You can't trust anybody. What are you going to do for a living? Yeah, I know you like to sing, but how are you going to earn your living? Yeah? So you like sports, but how are you going to earn your living? And before long, you realize how you're going to earn your living is by studying for years to do something you don't like with a bunch of people who aren't your people, who aren't like you, who don't like the things that you like. You got to sell your soul, you got to get a job, they got a career, you got all these things, and we lose our trust. We don't trust anybody anymore. See, people would do this to me. They would put me in a cubicle with a machine, and I have to do this all day long. How am I supposed to trust life? And that root part of the body locks up. We live in anxiety. What about your bills? What about your responsibilities? And we tighten up, and we are now only a shadow of ourselves. And then somewhere approaching age 20, generally we go through this big crisis where anger and anxiety overwhelm our curiosity, and we drop into the level of fearfulness. We're just fearful all the time. And that fearfulness makes us greedy, and people are greedy, not by our natures. We are greedy, not by our natures, but because we've been convinced of economics. Economics means scarce resources. There's not enough. There's not enough oil. There's not enough food. There's not enough water. There's not even enough air. There's not enough anything. Economy, look it up. Scarce resources. And we're sort of brainwashed into this shadow character who's greedy. I need more for me. And then people begin to play for the money, and they forget how to play with a sense of play. And then they decline even further. They become fatigued. They're dangerous because they're tired all the time. And how many accidents because